Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the session on regenerative transformation of industries, cities, and mobilities. My name is Christopher Mbanefo. I'll be your captain on this flight today. So the emergency exit, there are two over there in case of fire. Take your belongings and run. It's going to be an interesting conversation in the sense that it's quite an impossible topic when you think about it to discuss in 40 minutes. And I'm glad I'm not a keynote speaker, but simply the moderator. So that takes the pressure off me. We have two keynote speakers, and I would like to introduce our first speaker, Mrs. Anne Laure-Decour. From 2012 to 2024, 12 years, she worked at Puma and was based in Hong Kong since 1994, so quite a while in these parts. I noticed that when we spoke just outside before, there was a fruit that I was looking at and eating, not quite knowing what it was till I bit into it. It's a grape, and she said that these are the normal grapes in this part of the world. In my part of the world, in Switzerland, they're much smaller. So quite an interesting differential. She is now a board member of Gildan Active Wear, and is also on the board of a company in Switzerland called Helixa. So I will invite you, Anne, to give us your notion, and you have 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so 10 minutes to give you a little bit of insight of a real case. Edwin was touching a little bit on that earlier. Oops, stop there. Is it? Okay, thank you. So I'm based in Hong Kong for 30 years. So Asia has been my home for 30 years. And I've been witnessing a massive transformation in this region. And I'm going to share with you a bit of a real case on the industry of the apparel and fashion industry, a real case about an industry where brands and manufacturers shared an understanding to take action and to make impact when it comes into transformation of manufacturing and sustainability. The fashion industry has been in the spotlight for many, many years. We've been attacked by many NGOs, many regulators for quite many years. So we had to take action. It was not something that we chose to do earlier. It was something that we had to be doing. And it was really for us about building a collaboration, a mutual understanding of what is it that we need to do to make this industry more sustainable and actually able to last for long. So as I have 10 minutes, I'm going to go quickly. Why do I need to press here? Okay, so just to show you, this was the industry I mean, this is the path of the industry for the past 30 years. It was a very simple industry when I started 30 years ago. It became extremely complex the last many years for multiple reasons. A, because the tech has changed a lot of the way we operate today. The fast fashion became also a massive player for the industry, changing the rules. And of course, now we have the AI and digital transformation impacting us. A very interesting number. Sorry, I'm struggling with this. Just to show you what we are referring to. So the apparel, the fashion industry today is producing over 150 billion garments a year for 8 billion people. Okay. And if you look at the slide, in 2010, it was 80 billion. It's reaching today over 150 billion. The biggest question for us, and touching on consumption, is what is going to happen for these 100 billion garments that are being produced and being bought by consumers for the past, for the current stage. And we just know that it's going to get even more impressive. So some people are talking about 200 billion. Which one here? Okay. Some people are talking about 200 billion value garments, and that's going to become really a massive problem in terms of waste recycling, in terms of pollution, but also in terms of addiction from the consumer to buy this product. So what has been the paradigm shift for us in the industry? First, we had a supply chain disruption. First, we had COVID, and now we have a lot of volatility, as you all know, between the trade challenge, the rising costs, but also we have had big impact from the regulation. EU, and talking about the role of the state that was discussed this morning, I must give credit to the EU to have pushed for regulation, which has forced and helped the industry to transform. It's not just the EU. If we talk about China, China has very strict regulations when it comes into manufacturing and also when it comes into waste management. And the state of California also has been quite instrumental. The second thing is on sustainability. We used to look at it from a compliance perspective, but now that's becoming a business value. The interest from the consumer about how we do product and what we do with the product is growing from multiple countries. And my kids being in their 20s years old generation will tell you that they start making decisions in buying based on what the brand is doing in terms of sustainability. And then we have the digital pressure. The acceleration of AI is impacting the industry tremendously. The super fast fashion that Chinese players have been able to provide to consumer has also transformed the industry massively. And that's all these elements together is really setting up a paradigm shift for us in terms of industry. So what do we do? It's really about being pragmatic. If you're not getting pragmatic, you cannot address the issues. This is where the collaboration between manufacturers and between the brand has to be critical. One element here, the brands, for most of them, are not producing garments. They are just selling garments. So they basically rely on a network of factories or suppliers, primarily in this part of the world, from China to Southeast Asia and Latin America, that will give solutions for the brand to sell. The collaboration between the brands and the manufacturers has been key. And China has been leading the last few years, the transformation when it comes into machinery and investment into better production. The second thing is about innovate. Edwin, who's been my partner in crime in terms of innovation for the industry the past many years, was really about looking at what innovation will make sense for the business, what innovation will be able to be scaled, so we really make this industry more clean and better for the future. The biggest challenge the industry faces today is waste. Waste from production is one thing, but waste from consumption is the biggest problem that the industry collectively has to look at. And it's not just an EU problem, it's a US problem, it's a China problem, it's an Indonesia problem, it's a Latin America problem. The waste on the garment level, I'm sure you guys have seen horrible images from countries in Africa, like Ghana, dying under piles of garment being shipped, old garment being shipped to this continent that needs to be addressed. And if there is one area where I believe innovation needs to prevail is what is it we're going to do with all the waste moving forward. And of course, technology and data is key. Predictive analytics for the industry has helped to minimize the waste from a production standpoint. And hopefully with data and technology, we're going to be able to address also the end of life for our product. So partnership for progress, for me, it's about rebalancing power between the brands and the manufacturers. Manufacturers have been pretty shy to raise their voice, but today they have a lot of solutions. And whenever they've been investing in better machinery, they always took it from a business conversation. We get better machinery to print a product because we're going to save money, we're going to save ink. If we don't save money, if we don't make it more efficient, why would you invest in a new machinery? The industry as a whole has really looked into that from that angle of a business case, which helps to accelerate transformation. Today, there are many solutions to limit the use of water. We know the industry uses a lot of water. There are many solutions to limit electricity. And from an electricity standpoint, energy standpoint, China has been helping tremendously the industry to work on decarbonization. Just as an example from my side, in China today, most of the manufacturers have solar panel in the rooftop. Those solar panels provide renewable energy. And 30% of the energy used in the factory today is actually coming from this solar panel, which has an impact on decarbonization, but also an impact on cost, which also makes China even more competitive when it comes into producing. So the investment China has done in building this green energy has had a massive impact for the entire garment industry, from China to Indonesia to Vietnam to Bangladesh. Then, of course, we have stakeholders. The governments from various countries are big stakeholders. For us, it's about aligning in terms of standards. One of the biggest challenges we face today are multiple standards from multiple countries, different standards in EU versus US versus China. That brings complexity for manufacturing and brands. And of course, it's about collaboration when it comes into innovation with the right center, bringing the brands together, because not one brand can do it alone. It's all a brand collaboration using platforms such as Cascade, Textile Exchange, with our leading platform for the industry. And then some examples I was referring to on manufacturing. We have now our thermal and solar energy to speed up decarbonization, clean, dyeing and finishing and water-saving technologies across the board. The workers' condition had been addressed due to rising temperatures. You have now a lot of ACs generated by renewable energy in manufacturing to make the conditions better. And of course, there's been a lot of investment into robotics using data to cut overproduction and to accelerate the way we do product. Materials, we briefly touch on that. There's been a lot of investment into recycling. We have textile to textile technology using waste to make new textile. There is also investment into regen agriculture in cotton. There is a lot of interest and a lot of investment from the brand to provide cotton coming from regenerative agriculture. And of course, there is the reduction of chemical usage. From a product standpoint, for the brands, one of the requirements is to work on circular design, making sure that the product which is being designed can be dismantled and recycled at the end of life, and work with biodegradable solution. And to close, people are at the center. We need to educate the consumer. Again, 200 billion garments is massive for a population of 8 billion people. Making the consumer aware of the impact and their role to play in terms of maintaining sustainability or increasing sustainability for the industry is key. And of course, it's about embracing the change. There is a lot of resistance always to change, but I think the last few years has demonstrated that with the right investment and the right collaboration, there is a possibility to make this industry better. And I stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne. I think this is quite an interesting summary of the challenges of an industry, how they need to transform to actually be able to make a significant difference. We're going to now listen to Professor Yoshitsugu Hayashi. He's a fellow board member of the Club of Rome, and as well as a colleague, friend. He's a leading scholar in transportation, urban planning, and sustainability, a professor emeritus at Nagoya University, as well as Tokai Gakuen University in Japan. He's also a member of the Judo Association in Japan, and has been promoting judo as a philosophy for change and for global harmony. Yoshi?
Thank you very much. My title is Goodbye 20th Century's Paradigm, Replacing GDP by Personal QOL for Sufficient Mobility. Okay. Now, start with limits to growth, original one. Unfortunately, Jürgen is not here, but Jürgen's young days. This one. Yes. Okay. And then they were concerned about this exponentially increasing population, but food resource production cannot catch up. Then they simulated like this, and then sometime later, our human society will collapse. Okay. And what they told was non-linear growth should be very careful. And also, until 29th day, we think safe, but suddenly 30th day collapse. That's a matter of resilience. Then such kinds of collapse happens also in mobility. So this is, I don't know how to do, but so this is a per capita income. This is car ownership. Okay, Tokyo scrolling almost on surface, and in the middle is Beijing and Bangkok. Bangkok was growing very rapidly. Okay, although the income level was still lower, but like this. This is because they did not have means other than cars. Okay, and then this is a car ownership, and then vertical is how many meters of paved road is existing per road, per car. The car is increasing, then coming down. Okay, the only solution is same speed as car increases, we have to extend the road. So it's impossible. Okay. Finally, observed 1805, 1990, suddenly how many minutes necessary to move 1 kilometer suddenly to the left. So this I define as limit to motorization. And then so many stupidities in mobility in 20th century. So people leave home at the same time of the day. Why they love to move together? Congestions, people love, you love. Okay, so stupid. Okay, and then it's car-oriented, sprawled suburbanization. This is another stupidity. And then about 90% or over are sleeping, not used. So this means, reminds us, why not share? Okay, I'm from Toyota cars, Toyota Industries hometown. So they may be angry, but I don't recommend to buy so many cars. And then in many developing countries, people cannot walk, okay? And I was very successful. I was in charge of developing urban railways in Bangkok from 1990 to 1996. I was almost desperate, but very successfully, until now, more than 300-kilometer long railways were completed. Okay, so but still, because they cannot approach to the stations, so this should be improved. Okay, I have to rush. And then, as a result, what happens? The accidents. Okay, so this accident. This is Thailand. So every hour, 3 people killed. Okay, every day 66 people, and then this is the world data. 1.3 million people are killed by accidents. Okay, but even worse is by asthma, air pollution. 6.5 million people are killed. This is including because of air pollution from industries. Okay, so that means global warming and the CO2 is important, but in developing megacities, even more important is quality of air, right? I was born in an industrial city, petrochemical industrial city. I was having experience very much. And then also we had the COVID-19 studies. We published 2 handbooks immediately after COVID. And then we prepared, this was much earlier, how to improve transport to reduce CO2 emission, etc. And then avoid strategy. It's the best is not to move. Okay, but if you really wish to move, then please choose sustainable system. Okay, maybe big cities, not cars, but rather railways. And then if really wish to move by car, then better car you have to choose, improve. Okay. So now, say I talked about how to reduce emissions, okay, or climate change. But beyond climate change, what we need is this one, evaluating mobility by happiness. Okay, what is beyond the SDGs? So I have been working to prepare the method to measure happiness by individual person, not as a whole. Okay, GDP does not tell about no one left behind or not, because whole economy, that's all. Okay, so this is my method, simple method. Imagine you are living here, yellow mesh, but your hospital is 30 minutes or one hour away. Okay, so your physically available service will be diminished. This is the size of services because of distance smaller. And this is shops. Okay, shops are away and then diminished. So these are plus. This height is, I call it the accessible values. So this is given to everyone. Okay, but whether the person, young lady and old man like me, appreciated this is different by person. Okay, so if you are a young lady, okay, then most of the shopping service she may wish to obtain. But for me, no meaning this, but rather green one I wish to have, and then blue one small. Okay. So now, this is illustrated very simple equation. So imagine you live in I mesh, yellow mesh, but service is in J, not in your mesh, but far away. Then VMJ is J mesh, M service is existing, but you are not living there. Okay, so this is distance, Cij is distance, then diminished. Okay, so this is physically available accessible value. That's A. If you live in I, then so AI, this A, how you evaluate, you appreciate, is different. M service, medical service or shopping service, but depending on K, old man or young lady, M weight is different. Okay, so weighted sum I define QOL. Unless define QOL, we cannot go ahead. But this is my QOL. And what is good is integrating whole QOL over K, over the whole population. That is Bhutan's gross national happiness. Immediately, easily can calculate. But better is we can calculate for old men how much is GNH. Okay, whichever. Then I have to finish. Okay, 1 minute. Okay, so this is an example measured weight. Ladies are the most important, the crime rate, men not. Men is working convenience, and then senior people not. Senior people happy community life. Okay, so this is difference between people. I will give you a file if you like. Then I will go quickly. This is for young female. This is Singapore, okay, about 50 kilometers. And this is for a middle-aged lady, who may be happier than a young one. And then this is middle-aged man, less happy. And then this is old women, so and so. And old man, happier. So I have to remove to Singapore, okay? And then this is simple description. How many people are living vertical, and the color is happiness. Okay, so here very much happy, but the less people living because of living cost. Okay, so and these are very unhappy people, blue one. So two options. I'm a civil engineer, so we construct ring line of MRT. Okay. Indeed, after our calculation, Singapore government constructed ring line, okay? Or non-engineer just give subsidies to these unhappy people, then they can move closer to happy area. So there's options, okay? So I have to finish up. but this is a book. Okay, I will omit everything. So this is, I will cut everything, but this is to examine the shift of starting time at home, how make it people happier, okay? And not only going to the main office, but intermediately, any place, third place is important. This is running from COVID-19, okay? And then this is design. Finally, so we evaluate, assess any project, personal QOL increase divided by how much is necessary, cost is necessary to make him or her 1 unit happiness. Okay, so this is the final one, final one. So this is Sylvia's slide. Okay, so mobility is not only physical mobility, but this is China, okay, mobility of cosmic flow, energy. This is mobility. Okay, we define broadly. And this is Michel Bruce's slide. Judo, okay, fighting, looks fighting, but make close and then utilize the opponent's energy properly, beautifully throw, then we can become friends. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yoshi. May I suggest that maybe we sit like this, and may I ask you in the back to come a little bit closer to us so that we can get the idea of a circle. And then I think like this, it's easier for us to effectively all have a conversation with each other. I'd like to also quickly introduce our panel. So we have Ibon Zugasti, we have Jen Xuan, and we have Edwin K. So I will get the microphones to you, and then we'll just have a conversation. And please feel free to interject and to join. So yeah, so this is not so much of us speaking to you, but of us speaking together. So I'll keep one microphone on this side, and I'll keep one microphone on this side. And then it can circulate accordingly. My takeaway, very briefly, is quite interesting. Listening to what you said, Anne, you were very specific about the textile industry. And one graph that you showed, which I found personally very disturbing, was your garment production vis-a-vis the population. And it's a divergent curve. And this raises some serious questions about human behavior in the sense of human consumption. In other words, how long do we keep an item that we have purchased? When do I replace my cell phone? When do I replace the car? When do I replace my shoes? And when I look back or think back to my younger days, so to speak, we kept things much longer. Trousers, jeans, whatever it was. And today it seems like there's this insatiable pressure, so it seems, to get the latest, newest. And at the end of the day, you really have to ask yourself whether that behavior is a reflection of insanity. Question mark. Question mark. It's not a statement. The other thing I noticed was a big differential in the presentation of Anne vis-a-vis the presentation of Yoshi. Your presentation, Anne, was focusing on numbers, reducing emissions, reducing the cost or the waste in the production cycle, making that more efficient. But there was little solutions with regards to what we do with the waste. And you actually made that point by the fact that we have a big issue with waste being exported to the global south and it becoming a real issue there. So that was one approach. And Yoshi, you said something quite interesting, which is the measurement of human quality of life, the QOL. And I think that's a very interesting approach that we should consider in measuring progress. Happiness is an intangible, but you've been able to make that tangible by taking into account variables that can be measured. And based on that, that leads us to the possibilities of coming up with actual engineering solutions or economic solutions. And so at this point, I'm going to hand over, and I would like you to address your input into what they said. So I don't know who wants to speak first, but feel free. Just go with the flow.
Well, I'll start with this. I think one of the so your question about the increase in consumption, I think there are two things driving that in general. One, the costs of our what we use in apparel has been coming down as a percentage of our total income, discretionary income, because clothes are deflationary. The T-shirt that our parents bought was a higher percentage of their total discretionary income, and as opposed to today, in which we see prices going down, because this is one of the most globalized industries in the world. So there is always another developing economy that you can go to keep your production costs down, and feel free to jump in to support any or contradict any of this. So the challenge is that, so we have that happening, and at the same time, we have this really successful advertising campaign by the industry that has done two things. One, correlated how we look with how we feel. Like you have to look this good, otherwise you're not going to be cool. And that they keep changing that. So then you're forever in this chase to be in the right look. And the byproduct of that is that they've very successfully turned a durable clothes that we used to hang on to and repair and give to our children into a consumable, things that we use and throw away. So I think if you combine those two, that is, I think, where we see the increase coming from.
And just to add one thing as well, because the cost of the garment has been reduced so much, it also has been given the possibility for developing countries to start jumping into the play of buying fashion. It used to be a very much Western consumption territory, but today, if you look between China, India, Indonesia, Latin America, why we reach now this nearly 200 billion garments, because it's becoming a global product that anyone, anywhere can have access for a very limited amount. And on top of that, you have had the last 4 or 5 years an acceleration, because the supply chain proposition, particularly through Chinese players, became so addictive. You know, the social media through TikTok and others have been creating an addiction toward the consumer. And by the way, not just the young ones, it's multi-generation. It's from the 15 years old to the 55 or 65 years old. That's turned into an addiction, because scrolling on your phone, you will be able to have access to something very cheap that you can get very quickly. So it's a combination of technology, but also the pool of consumer has increased dramatically, which leads us now to 200 billion garment in the market. So I think addressing the addiction is one element. But today the consumer is still willing to buy, and that's really part of the problem.
Yeah, talking about regenerative transformations, I like to relate it to industry, city, and transportation, especially when it's subject to mega disaster. And Taiwan has been identified by the World Bank as one of the regions with highest disaster risk in the world. So the island frequently suffer from earthquake, typhoon, torrential rain, landslide, and the floods. So, and we have a very high density and also very tall mountain, up to 3,000 meters high. Yeah, so in our life, yeah, we live with the natural disaster. Yeah, so we have how serious the disaster affect countries. Yeah, let me just say that Typhoon Sika hit Philippines 3 days ago and led to historical flood and caused more than 100 days, just 3 days ago. In average, annually, they lost 3% GDP, okay? And while we are talking, another typhoon is developing. It is expected to hit Philippines again in the coming 3 days, okay? So how to deal with this kind of problem, especially when you subject to mega disaster? Yeah, you got to have a very fast and a good reconstruction or recovery process to stand up. Otherwise, all those damage and suffering is keep on elevated, accumulated, okay? And so I went to Katrina, New Orleans, went to New Orleans last year, and Katrina typhoon was in the year of 2005. So it's been 20 years. But if you look at the vulnerable people there, I still see many people sleep under the bridges, and many infrastructures was not well taken care. Yeah. So how to develop a system, okay, can sustain and get a quick recovery. In Taiwan, we have some experience. Yeah. If we talk about the industries in Taiwan, TSMC, okay, they cannot, sustain long-term damage due to earthquake. So usually 1 hour or even at the most 1 day, they had to go back to their business, okay? And we set up a system called social management system. So it's integrations among government and NGOs and the enterprise. Of course, also with the effort of our refugee people. Yeah. So we have many cases. Yeah, I have been in charge of this kind of reconstruction for 5 or 6 typhoon and maybe 3 or 4 earthquake afterwards. And our powers for NGOs are very strong. I think it could be the strongest all over the world. They go to the site.
Gentleman,
Oh, okay.
I'm just looking at the time for.
Okay. Okay. In summary, I probably recommend we need to have a resilient structure after the disaster and bring it to recover as soon as possible. So we have to prioritize the construction of resilient structure. We have to ensure equitable resource allocation and strengthen the capacity of the vulnerable region. And we have to shift from post-disaster reconstruction to pre-disaster planning and land conservation. We also need to respect and integrate indigenous peoples and their culture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we need to focus on the topic in the sense of responding to what the speakers said and how that also affects the transformation of the topic, in other words, of industry, cities, and mobility. So please go ahead, Ibon.
Yes, thank you. I will focus especially on the industry part of it, even if mobility and cities are also very relevant for us. As I explained at the plenary session, Mondragon is it's a large industrial group, cooperative group, the largest industrial cooperative in the world, with sales of around 11 billion euros and big active participation and manufacturing here in China with around 20 factories. So first of all, I would like to explain a little bit why a cooperative group is kind of a multinational, because usually cooperatives only operate in their local area, even if they are big. For instance, in Canada, in Quebec, you have Desjardins, which is a big bank. It's a cooperative bank, but it only operates in Quebec, in Canada. Well, the case of Mondragon is very singular because we are one of the only large cooperative groups that is industrial. Usually cooperatives, they are more on services or in agriculture, sometimes utilities also in the US, but Mondragon is a strange case, let's say, because it's on manufacturing. So when you are in manufacturing and you have clients like Volkswagen, you have no choice of saying, I'm going to stay only in my home country or I'm going to go overseas. You have to go to the place where your client is. Either it's in Mexico, China, Germany, or South Africa. You have no choice. So this is how we managed to create this global structure of sites, manufacturing sites that are part of a cooperative group owned by the workers, which is a very strange case. And coming to the regenerative approach, well, I was explaining a little bit in the previous session about the social approach with the democratic governance, the indicators, and so on, and how we distribute the wealth. I'm now going to focus more in this sense on the regenerative and environmental approach. So we work in, I'm going to mention only the sectors where we work. So industrial sectors are mainly
If you could make that brief so that we can also get a quick
sure.
view.
I have like
Q&A
2
as
minutes
well.
more, or yeah,
1 minute.
1 minute.
Please.
Okay. Automotive solutions, home solutions, equipment, construction, business services, health, food, and banking and insurance. And the sustainability technologies that we are betting for are renewable energies, energy storage, electronics, electrical machines, thermal process, circular economy. In circular economy, let me give you just a figure. Only 6.9% of the products are reused. So the potential to grow on circular economy is huge because we are doing so low. Correction of pollution, light materials, advanced materials, and alternative proteins. So these are our approaches, our bets on sustainability.
Thank you. I'm going to be provocative now, because there is a basic element that I think is missing, and then I'm going to throw it open to the rest of the audience. If I ask each one of you, why are you doing what you are doing? Why are you in fashion? Why are you doing whatever it is that you're doing? Likewise as well. What I would like to hear is the same response that if I go to a cook, a chef, and I ask him, why are you a chef? And if he says to me, I am a chef because I want to make people happy, my joy is to see my clients smile, for example. And if we ask that question, I think your clients, they end up smiling because you have affected their quality of life that were hit by a disaster. If all of us are able to contribute a positive change to the variables that Yoshi is putting in his equation, that the inputs of my actions positively affect the QOL, then I think we are beginning to pull in the same direction of having a positive effect, which by definition would automatically include regenerative thinking, regenerative agriculture, circular economy. So I don't think it is enough if an industry can say, oh, we have improved this, we have improved that. No, why are you doing what you're doing? So that's the provocative question I want to put out to each and every one of us. Why are we doing what we're doing in our various work activities? And so at this point, floor is open. We only have about 5 minutes left. So let's use this authority. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have the microphone. Sir. I was 1 hour behind. Sorry, I was in a different time zone, I think. Thank you so much. Okay, so the stress is off. I must apologize for putting all of you under so much pressure. My apologies. Please, my apologies. Okay, so let us pick this up. We can all, relax. Thank you so much, Anne, for pointing that out. That's why it's always good to have a lady amongst the panel, because we're so narrow-minded. But I think it's an interesting question. Since we have time, I would like to throw it to the two of you and then let the panel discuss that before we open it up to the audience, yeah? So why are we doing what we are doing? And I would like us to answer that specifically.
Okay, if we have time, I will tell you one story to start with. When I was a young buyer in 1990, my first trip was in Bangkok as a buyer. My first meeting was in Bangkok with a Chinese Thai supplier who looked old to me, probably had my age at that time. And he looked at me and say, do you know why you work for the fashion industry? I say, well, I work for the fashion industry because I love it. It's a great industry. It's fun. I say, no, you work for this industry because your previous life was so bad that you get punished the next life and you work for the fashion industry. And I've been asking myself for many years, what did I do wrong in my previous life? Because it's a difficult industry. But joke aside, to answer your question, I think what has come very natural to few of my colleagues in the industry, and I was collaborating with big brands during my time at Puma, was the sense of responsibility we have towards the workers. This industry has been providing livelihood to many, many, many people in the world. It usually has been the first industry in any developing country. You start with the garment industry because it's a low investment and it can basically give jobs to many people, especially women. And I think and I'm sure Edwin will echo that, but for all of us in this industry, from a brand standpoint, we had a responsibility towards these people in this developing country, from Bangladesh to Cambodia to Vietnam and even China, to make sure we can provide them with a livelihood. So we've been doing a lot of this investment and collaboration to make sure that there will be continuity and there will be care about so many people who basically feed a lot of families. At Puma, at my job as a chief supply sourcing officer and sustainability officer, Puma, basically from a sourcing standpoint, covers 500,000 workers. When your business goes down, when you don't do it right, you impact 500,000 families. And that's something that at time was keeping me awake at night. So I think we really do that for the sense of responsibility, at least on my side.
Good for you, Anne. I think there are two parts to the question as I hear you say, and I think the answer about why we do what we do should be where X meets Y, which is, we have to recognize what the externalities are. What are the needs of the world? You know, where are the issues? And then the why is what are my capabilities? What can I contribute to that? Because, you know, I can't be a surgeon. You know, that's not what I'm trained to do. So I think it's an inward look at what we do, who we are, and then in its external look at what is the context of the world we operate in. I think that's an important place to start. But of course, I think the most important reason why we do what we do is that we want to be useful. We want to make sure that we are we're doing things because it needs to be done. I think that's one. The other one I would say is that I think sometimes that answer is a little bit more difficult. One of my current project this year is I'm helping start a new retail chain that is based out of Tokyo, and so I go to Tokyo about a week every month. And what I find in my Tokyo team, and I'm not Japanese and I'm not a Japanese expert, but as I get to know my Tokyo team, I find their lives to be miserable. I mean, Tokyo is a very high pressure place. I'm sorry, not from Tokyo, but the commute is long. The stress they put themselves under to perform is significant, and the living conditions that they are in always involves compromises because nobody can afford to live in Tokyo. But they don't realize that. It's sort of like fish doesn't realize they're in water or something like that. That is just something that they're used to, they're accustomed to. They feel that is the same type of experience for all their peers that they work around in. So in terms of how we improve what happens in cities, I think sometimes we have to fundamentally create that awareness of this is where the context and these are the opportunities and possibilities that are beyond the context that you're operating in today. I don't know if that I'm expressing myself right.
I have related comments. What I presented today is Bangkok first. Bangkok. You had experience, yeah. The 1990 was almost when I started the examination of Bangkok. At the time, no railways. Then, although inside of Bangkok, already over 6 million, okay, and the total more than 10 million. Okay, so that was a kind of say not a daily situation, and what Jesse told about was not non-daily. So daily and non-daily, well, nowadays, due to climate change, non-daily has become daily, right? So that means we have to design or redesign the cities reversible, in a sense, reversible. Okay, so sometimes reversible wares you have. So that means daily infrastructure use and the non-daily infrastructure use. We have to design together. At the same time, we do need the concept of time and space. Time means historical change or historical development axis. Okay, today's Bangkok and the 1990s Bangkok are totally different. Okay, that is time. So looking at the today only and then design or plan the city may be totally wrong. Okay, and also Bangkok, well, UK started urbanization, and then followed by European continent, America, and Japan, and then Bangkok and Shanghai. Okay, but sometimes exceed. Okay, population growth. Bangkok has chased Tokyo, not yet as big as Tokyo, still 1/3. Okay, but what Bangkok exceeded was there in suburbs, all the people are left because their development was not along railways, but so depending on road and the cars, very much dispersed. So once people aged, cannot drive, and then helps. But the public transport cannot be profitable. No company wish to operate buses, etc. So that is daily and non-daily has become so simultaneously happening. So that is what Jesse has done. And he's a system which accomplished system after big disaster reconstruction system is one of the top ideas. And we Japan, we are also a department store. Japan is a department store of the natural disasters. So we have to learn from his system. Yeah. So he may explain a little bit more. Yeah.
I would like to, before I hand over to you guys, I'd like us to be challenged so that we can look for components of the fashion industry and see how your expertise can be applied to what Jesse is doing, to what Ebon is doing. You're in the automotive industry from as much as I gather. In the automotive industry, you employ fabrics, which means that there is a link between what you are doing with what you are doing. There's a link in the materials, there's a link in the design, there's a link in the texture of the fabric. Is there a way, for example, to utilize recycled garments to provide that for the automotive industry? Question mark. Is there a way, for example, when you say that people want to have change? Let me speak on my side. My background is aerospace engineering. I ended up in aircraft interior design. And one of the things that blew my mind is the fact that in one larger corporate jet, we literally use one tree, one tropical tree, to produce veneer of 5 millimeters. And we put that on top of tables and what have you. And when the owner changes, they want a different set of veneer. Absolute madness. And so we developed a technique where instead of using veneer, we used an LED, veneer that you could change. As a matter of fact, we could adapt it. So if you have a corporate jet and it's a shared ownership, we can have 6 different designs. One looks like Kevlar, one looks like granite, and one looks like wood. It's the same material. And so I'm asking whether with artificial intelligence, we can end up having clothes, shoes, apparel, that the user can modify the design, question mark. Instead of buying something new, I can change the design. I can make my shoes green if I want to, with blue dots. I can put a stripe or squares or whatever. So I'm trying to see whether there's a cooperation here. Recycled materials to help Jesse to create housing, emergency housing, insulation material that you need as well in a temperate zone. And so I think by cross-fertilizing here, we can end up having an impact on the variables, because at the end of the day, Yoshi, I think the real essence of the QOL is how much time do I have left in a day to do what I want to do once I have done what I need to do. And that differential is basically what your QOL is. So with that, over to you.
So thank you for the framework. And we are very happy to strengthen cooperation with the textile sector and with you. I have to be honest. I would say the textile sector is not as relevant for us as the automotive sector, where we work a lot both in auto parts and in machinery for auto manufacturing. But I think in machinery, in tool machines especially, so the textile sector is also a client for us. We are suppliers. We are auto parts. Yes, yes, auto parts. This is within the industrial 10 divisions. This is number one for us. And we work, some of our factories in China work on that. But I think the key point is that there is a lot of room for improvement, we know, and the textile sector is a clear example. There are many other sectors, especially on the circular economy approach. Again, the figure is only 6.9% of the products are reused somehow on that circular approach. So imagine what is a big potential for the world. Also, for us, for Mondragon, I mean, I think we need to go to the next generation of regeneration. For instance, when I was saying before that we are investing in new business startups related to alternative proteins, this means that we want to focus on what we call and you all know, the water, energy, and food security nexus. You know how the nexus work. In the past, when we were investing in biofuels, for instance, biofuels have a good side and then a not good side part. They were considered renewable energies until recently, but now most of the experts think that they are not really renewable, especially even the second generation biofuels, because what you get into getting more energy, you lose on water consumption and use of soil. That soil is not used for food production. So that's the whole idea of the water, energy, and food security nexus. So one of the big alternatives of instead of using this production for biofuels is to use it and to produce especially alternative proteins for food security. This is one of our clear priority for the next year. Another one on a regenerative approach, energy storage. We have advanced a lot on renewable energies, especially China. As we know, China, I think last year produced more renewable energy than the rest of the world together. So the growth in capacity on energy, renewable energy in the world and especially in China is huge. But we need to go to the next step on the, let's say, renewable system that it's creating a energy storage system that could make renewable energy, especially solar, more reliable and more competitive compared to, especially to nuclear and others. So that's another investment priority for us, storage. And then finally, I would say in renewable energy, in solar, especially, we want to promote what we call solar cooperatives. For instance, in Spain, there was a huge growth on solar energy, but most of the new solar plants, they are huge, like 200, 300 megawatts, big installations. The problem is, first, they are using a lot of soil, and so that's bad for the food production. But then the model is not very regenerative. So they are mainly owned by big hedge funds. They want to get a big return in the short term, and they usually reselling the installation to another fund. Instead, what we suggest is to promote solar cooperatives on a community level. What we do is Mondragon is promoting that with our cooperative knowledge. We talk to the cities and the regions, and we help them set up these cooperatives. So you need to gather a number of citizens, could be hundreds or thousands, getting together and creating their own solar production systems where they can consume their own energy, but it's not that easy. So you need to support them on the whole legal process, regulatory process, talk to the authorities and so on. And this is working very well. In Spain, we have very good examples of that. And I think this could be also a very interesting alternative solution for a real regenerative, let's say, good practice compared to traditional big approaches.
Well, I can talk about the textile part. I mean, and Edwin can support me there because he's done a lot of innovation there with Hong Kong Retail. For me, the two main focus or the two main impact that we need to look at from an industry standpoint is access to renewable energy, because decarbonization is really key for everybody. And I love what you just say about this cooperative concept from a city standpoint, because I think from not just Spain, everywhere in the world, that's something that could be basically developed. So renewable for me is really the number one thing to look into. Water management is key. We know that there is shortage of water in the world, and the industry that I represent does use a lot of water, and there's been a lot of innovation and investment into making the industry less dependent on water. You guys work on the cotton farming using also no water. So this is something key. These are the two big things from a manufacturing standpoint. The other one for me is really this waste conversation. And I think there is a lot of, okay, at Puma, I developed the circular economy concept for textile to textile technology, not pre-consumer in the factory, that's easy, post-consumer, so all the waste from the consumer. And we kicked off a project in Spain, and we ended up going to China because China has a scale, has a dimension to do that at cost. Because at the end of the day, if you do something that the consumer doesn't want to buy because it's too expensive, you're just wasting your time. So the focus is key. Now, on textile to textile, actually, they use a lot of waste from the automobile industry, carpets, home textiles, uniforms, and there is fantastic technology to recycle or use textiles into new textile. As a matter of fact, if you happen to buy a football jersey from Puma, it's actually made from this technology today. It's about millions of units made of that, nearly at cost. The problem is, if you look at the circular economy, the biggest challenge is how do you collect the waste? How do you sort the waste? And the feedstock that you need to produce this recycling is actually the biggest problem. And I've been debating with Edwin on that because I'm on that journey on the circular economy thing. And with my experience on that now 3-4 years and building that solution for Puma, I came to the conclusion that there is a dream in the circular economy thinking that you use a waste to redo something similar. I think for me, what really will make a big difference, especially when you see where the waste is located in the world and the garment industry, it's everywhere, from Africa to Latin America to everywhere, to be at scale and to make an impact, I think the best usage of waste is to create energy, decarbonized energy. And I'm really hoping that, China having a lot of great engineers and, great capabilities, that there will be some technology coming. And I met some startup actually able to provide this sort of technology, that the waste will actually come back into not really the same product, but really bringing energy for wherever people need energy. Because energy is number one conversation today, if you ask me. The rest is a lot of blah, blah, but energy is really where the economy needs support.
Thank you. I think it's all valuable contributions, and I thank you for that. What you were mentioning, Ibon, is effectively microgrids, right? So microgrids is definitely the way forward in conjunction with renewable energy systems. And we also need to figure out a way of providing mobility into the energy systems, which is again what Jesse would need. If you go to a disaster zone, one of the big issues I would think is how do we get energy, electricity, to the people, be it for cooking and be it for heating, water purification. All those things become very, very critical. I'm going to start circulating and I'm going to approach Sylvia. Sorry for bringing you out of your slumber. I believe you visited recently a refugee situation. And maybe you want to just explain and tell us what you saw, what touched you, how that relates to what we heard over here. Clothing is one of the big issues for refugees. It's a dire need. Refugees typically are forced to move without being able to take what they normally have. And that opens up a whole Pandora's box. How does that relate? What do you think is important so that we can get back to the QOL function that Yoshi said? How does that affect that? And I think that may also cause a link to what you are doing, Jesse. So over to you.
Yes. Well, actually, I had this extraordinary experience, great, thanks to Jesse. And I saw the indigenous people, the native people, living with dignity when they, after having survived of a terrible disaster, it was the yes. Now, what what's extraordinary is that, well, we are talking about all this mobility, of course, to make the mobility of that help, of that to the refugees has been an extraordinary effort. And something that I pay attention to is something that was said, I think, that by Jesse in that moment. Those things that were received by the refugees was of the first quality. It was the best, the best mattress, the best garments, the best. Because what they were looking at is not just to save that person from the disaster, but to treat that refugee and to foster his dignity. And with that dignity, those refugees that became the owners of the lands that were given to them so that they could reinitiate their life, with that dignity, they made a community of enterprises, of development. They produce garments, they produce handcrafts, they produce beautiful pieces of arts, they produce food, they produce coffee, they produce honey. They are independent. They are independent, and what is more important, they are dignified. And well, mobility was essential, of course, mobility. But I think that at the end of the day, what is important with all this development, innovation, etc., mobility, etc., what is important is the respect to those human beings. And that is, I think, the great force.
Yeah, so we visited was a real practice of regenerative economy. Okay, yeah, everything revived, not only revived, but also a kind of a built back better. the landslide or say flood is not like your experiences, recent experiences in Europe. You are facing flood now, but 100 times bigger flood, the whole village disappeared. Okay, how to recover? That was the job of Jesse. So he was originally top researcher in concrete engineering. He was the top of worldwide concrete research association. But at the same time, he's the real practitioner, okay, and living together with indigenous people. Okay, at the beginning, he was criticized. Don't come government, but patiently he repeatedly talked. So then realized the key word is living with dignity. That is the real result. And also, his the best, in my sense, best result measure is steep decrease in self-killing. So suicide. So his system has helped a lot. Yeah.
In two of those villages, what have been for me amazing are two schools and the way education is delivered, how children are educated, in which level, with their own traditions, but open to the world, and in the place of beauty. The beauty is everywhere. In the houses, in the private houses, gardens, and pictures and ornaments, each house different to the other. So that was the spirit that really amazed me, and that I want to export to my country, where sometimes those that suffered catastrophe are absolutely abandoned.
This is, it touches me in a sense, because once upon a time I was a refugee. And so what I do know is that disaster can happen to any one of us at any given time. And being able to maintain the dignity of life, to be empowered and not to be treated as, well, as human waste. Let me be very provocative here. Because within every human being is a source of a miracle in the making. In every child is a new beginning. It's a seed, that you plant. You don't know what it will be. It can be a tree, it can be a flower, but it's a miracle in the making. And so the question comes up again, why are we doing what we are doing? Sometimes I hear that the most important thing is to provide a profit for the shareholders. I think we can all raise a question mark on that. We also hear a lot, we need to provide jobs, job security. As I indicated before, I was a part of the aerospace industry. I worked for a company. I was in charge of flight test engineering of an aircraft program that was used for military programs. It was a military aircraft. And I left the factory the day I found out that the factory was supplying, or rather, let me put it this way, we were supplying aircraft to Iraq during the Iraq-Iran Gulf War. And one day I came to the factory and there was a total chaos going on. Everybody was running around. And what was the issue? The issue was that we were expecting a delegation from Iran. And they were coming to purchase the same aircraft. Well, the problem was that on the production line, we had Iraqi aircraft with the Iraqi, insignia, Iraqi Air Force insignia. So there was the fire brigade exercise of moving aircraft around, covering certain aircraft so that we could now take the Iranian delegation through the factory. At which point I said, what are we doing here? And so in conversations with some of my colleagues, we need to ask ourselves, what are we ultimately doing? What are we producing? We're producing death. That's it, bottom line. We are merchants of death. Sitting in a presentation of a colleague of mine of a new program we were doing at the time of a fighter aircraft for the Swiss Air Force, going through a presentation of the probability of kill of this new aircraft vis-a-vis a US F-16, and why this aircraft has a better potential to fit the purposes of the Swiss Air Force, again, made me think, why am I doing this? What are we doing here? And yes, at the end of the day, we are protecting jobs. So gets a job, to do what? And so we need to ask ourselves again, what are we doing? Why are we doing whatever it is that we're doing? And what is the legacy that we're going to be leaving behind? So again, throwing the question open, I think the thought of competition, corporate competition, is a zero-sum game. And I would like to kind of figure out a way, is it possible to have corporate competition change into corporate cooperation for the purpose of producing happiness? Again, QOL. I'll share a short story and then the mic will then continue circulating. A missionary shared this story with a group of us. He was in Zimbabwe at a time when it was called Rhodesia. And he shared a story of being with a group of children. And he lined these kids up and said, hey, I have a packet of biscuits here. I'm going to put the packet of biscuit over there at that tree. I want you kids to line up. I'm going to say, ready, steady, go. And the first kid to get there gets the biscuit. And so they all lined up. And he said, ready, steady, go. And to his surprise, all the kids held each other's hands. They ran together to the tree. They got to the tree and they shared the biscuits amongst themselves. So the concept of winning is either a zero-sum game or it's recognizing the common benefit of all, where everybody contributes. And so we've heard a little bit of what everyone has been doing. So I'm going to, again, ask a question. Ibon, what can you do to help the fashion industry? Fashion industry, what can you do to help Jesse? Jesse, what can you do to become a positive variable in Yoshi's equation? Over to you, Ibon.
Thank you for the invitation, of course. And coming to your first point, why we are doing this. in our case, I see that in many sessions now, they speak so much about the purpose of business organizations to become a business organization with a purpose, with a mission, long-term mission. I mean, we don't speak about that because that is part of us. We are a cooperative group owned by the workers. It's not that yes.
How can you help them?
Yeah. So in
It's an exercise. It's not
yeah, I know, but
a business proposition, but just an exercise.
I know. But you were mentioning about the purpose, and so I wanted to say that it's part of us, and cooperation is in our name. I mean, we use two kinds of cooperation. What we call intercooperation is within our group because 70,000 people in very different businesses. You also need to promote cooperation inside. And of course, outside, we naturally work with our clients, our suppliers, all our stakeholders, and always with this same mission that we need to be to use our principles outside. I mean, for instance, we are not today, if you want to earn money very fast, you go to the defense sector.
Ibon, sorry,
Yes.
with all due respect, one sentence, how can you help them? One, so that we can get this
Let's
thing.
have a meeting. Let's have a meeting, and we will find a way. I'm
Good.
sure. Thank you.
That's good.
Yeah, you can say, but you mentioned Katrina, so my last corporate job, I ran the global supply chain for Walmart. For 7 days, the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Organization, cannot deliver anything to the victims. For 7 days, the only thing that kept people alive was the global supply chain of Walmart. Store managers broke into their own stores, started distributing food, over-the-counter medicine, and water. And what we realized at that point in time is that when you have a powerful global supply chain, you can do a lot of things. So when the earthquake struck in Sichuan, the CEO of Walmart and I got on the call, and I took a 40-foot container worth of tents, and we were in Sichuan within 24 hours. And the first shelter that people had that night after the earthquake were tents that I stole I requested to move off a ship bound for the United States, and it went to Sichuan. When the pandemic hit, the chief executive of Hong Kong asked me, says, "We have no PPEs. What can you do?" She called me on February 4th, the fourth day of Chinese New Year, somewhere like that. By the 28th of February, we were shipping reusable face masks to people that are in need. We were calling on the manufacturers that we knew. Andrew in Vietnam did the manufacturing. Material supply from Korea. There was an Israeli supplier owned by a Hong Kong company that made that were able to kill viruses on contact in the material. We used that, and we made a face mask that can be washed 60 times. We made 10 million face masks that was delivered to Hong Kong, and it was delivered within 2 months of the ask from the chief executive. All that to say that it's not only just materials and designs, but it's also the globalized supply chain that we can use, which can be used in extraordinary crises, but also can support the well-being of ordinary citizens. Today, only available in Tokyo. If you go into one of our retail shops, you can buy a T-shirt, a cotton T-shirt that sequesters CO2. It sequesters CO2 at the rate of 1/3 of a tree a day. The third time you wash and wear it, it is a carbon neutral product. We've washed that product 99 times. It's a carbon negative product. A passive CO2 sequestering material. You look good and you can feel good, and you're doing some good at the same time. So this is soft materials can be a very powerful tool. and improving the lives of people.
And just to echo to Edwin, there are already between big companies, and I'm part of that, a lot of conversations how we can help each other, from the food industry to the car industry to the distributions. I mean, you know, there are a lot of executives who know each other and really are talking to each other on a regular basis to share and to build solution together. So that togetherness from a business standpoint is not something which is very public, because you know, the moment you start making it public, you start getting hit. So instead of greenwashing, you are greenhushing at the moment. You redo it on the, you know, the radar. So you don't get, there's so much bias from the NGOs at the moment that you don't want that to be known. But to echo what Edwin just said, especially on the supply chain, you know, when my kids were asking me, what is your job? I say, my job is a shit manager. I just manage problem every day. I manage shit every day, problem every day. You know, disasters every day. You know, COVID was part of that. And I think the supply chain people have a knowledge or a capability and a commitment to go beyond the competition to make it actually much more collaborative. Not everybody, but there is a movement there that's, you know, it's not visible and people are not talking about it, but this is really, really happening.
Okay, thank you, Yoshi and Sylvia. Well, after Typhoon Morocco, we have relocated many people. For those need to be relocated, 2/3 are indigenous people. Since they used to live by the sea, and gradually when Han people came, they gradually were pushed to the high mountain area, while due to the weather change, even the higher area, it's not just the island is you know, suffer to that. Even in the high area with slope, when it's subject to extreme weather, in Typhoon Morocco, 3 days, 3,000 meter high, 3 meter high, that kind of rainfall. So that take away many bridges and the embankment, okay? So the relocation process is very difficult. Even the first part, rescue, you just mentioned, since for the whole process, it's a cycle, yeah. Rescue and temporary arrangement, immediate arrangement, and the permanent arrangement, okay? And the job, in the job opportunity and the industry development is the most difficult one, yeah. Since they have to, you have place to live, but you cannot support yourself, yeah, sustainably, then the relocation will be fair, okay? So we relocate 44 community villages, and we reconstruct 126 sustainable new bridges, okay? So after the Typhoon Morocco has been 13 or 14 years, we subject to many typhoon, some earthquake. They are all still there, and they serve a major functions to become a shelter, you know, for the refugee, their relatives, they come, you know, when we announce typhoon is coming. And for those bridges, transportation system, it became resilient structures. So it become a very important for assistance, So, so that's what I think. Transformative regenerations, you have to think about the sustainability. But all this reconstruction was based on what? Based on the love, respect, and empathy. Okay, that's the way. So in our spatial act, when we start the actions, we say that reconstruction should be people-oriented and livelihood-centered, while respecting cultural diversity, ensuring community participation. This is very important. Since today we work together, yeah, and balancing land conservation with environmental resource protection. So that's our experience. Okay, thank you.
Yoshi, are you happy with the results of this quick trial of cooperation? how does that affect the equation of QOL? Have we achieved anything here, according to you?
Yeah, I'm very happy to have this session. Yeah. Well, why QOL? Okay, why QOL? Particularly in developing countries, the disasters in particular, hit by disasters are mostly very poor people. Not only Taiwan, but also the Philippines, Manila Bay, super typhoon hit. But rich people are not living just in the depths of the bay, but just beside. That is like judo. Okay, he's a professional in Uchimata. He was continuously 3-year champion. Okay, Uchimata means, but Uchimata, just shift like this, then throw by himself. Okay, so this kind of resilience, say, preparation is very important. But so that should be done for, say, poor people in particular. So that means regenerative economy, circular economy is okay, but it is very different. The who will receive merits and demerits are different. So by person who it is, that is why I started individual QOL estimation system development. That is the first one. And also, as I told, damage or merit is different in space and time. So those dimensions are totally missing still in the club of law. Okay. So this should be, say, approached a variety of ways. And then we have to connect theory, philosophy, and practice. And I myself was really impressed by visiting the real site. And I could not imagine beauty after recovering from the disasters. Really beauty, and the people looked very happy. And then he created small jobs locally, new wares, okay, nice design, and they are very much proud of it. So such kind of things, I would like to introduce those factors also, the calculating by my QOL function. Yeah, so I'm very happy about this. Thank you very much. And your moderation was super. Thank you.
So on that note, I just want to ask I'm going to have the mic circulate for everybody that hasn't spoken to just introduce yourself.
Christopher.
1 second, please.
I know. Doing the bad guy.
I know. 1 second, just say who you are and what you're doing here. Pass it on, just that everybody knows everybody that is here.
Great, thank you. Thank you to the presenters as well. My name is Callum Douglas. I'm living in Beijing, working as a consultant on nature and biodiversity.
I'm Xin Feng, and I'm from the local university, and we do projects here. And I'm here to try to learn something from your guys' talk. But my argument would be local people's mind will never change, especially when you talk about like the double carbon thing and factories, they don't change. Local people don't change.
I disagree. Local people can change, but anyway.
Thank you. This is Daniel. Actually, I'm with the think tank of Chinese Academy of Science, the largest academy in China. Actually, the first day afternoon, I delivered a speech on the regional development on the context of ecological civilizations, because time's so short, I didn't express completely. So if you like, maybe we can find some other time in the next few days. Thank you.
Peter Blom, banker. In this respect, I'm very impressed by an organization, Common Land. If you can ever look it up, Common Land is a total regenerative package for a big region where industry, civil society, NGOs work together and bring a whole region up to a new level. So I think it's an interesting organization to look up.
I'm Salvatore Moccia. I'm just entering into the room. I do not know what's the question. I'm coming from the previous panel, so I move to the next one.
We're talking about ice cream.
Hello everyone, I'm Yingji Pang, and I'm from the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and I study the wetland. So I'm a wetland ecologist. So basically, the fundamental research. So maybe what can we do? Can I do for you? It's more like we do ecological monitoring and restorations. Maybe it's useful for your decisions. Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Bernice Ang. I do research and teaching in complex system science, and I like to help people solve problems by first understanding them.
Everyone knows me. I'm Robin Ann Pollard. I work for the Club of Rome and organize this event.
Martin Frick, I run the Food System Summit of the Secretary General. I'm now with the World Food Programme, and tomorrow morning I'm going to speak about the systemic importance of food systems.
Hi, I'm Emi Kuroda from Sokagaka International, global community-based Buddhist organization. Thank you for this wonderful session.
Oh, well, I am Sylvia Zimmerman. I am the co-president of the Club of Rome. And I am a philosopher, a writer, a poet. And that is why I love beauty, and I think that it is fundamental to dignify people.
Michel Bruce, Yoshi was kind enough to mention judo, and Law did not. But you mentioned mutual benefits. The founder of judo made a big difference between judo in a narrow sense and judo in a wide sense. It means judo in a wide sense, useful for society. And we have two main mottos in judo. The best use of energy and mutual prosperity. So I hope more companies will be convinced on a larger scale of what you said today.
Thank you so much for this session. I hope you all had a good time, you enjoyed it, and a round of applause to the contributors, please. Thank you so much.
So you already know who I am. I will not say that. I just want to, before saying something about the program tomorrow, just want to come back to the point of refugees, disasters, in particular to your point you said at the point you were a refugee. In a workshop at there is an organization in Zurich called the Circle of Young Humanitarians. So young people from Zurich, one of the most privileged cities in the world, where everything looks perfect and stable, where the trains go in time and all that. There is a group of people who cared enough, to say, well, we have to do something, to promote humanitarian attitudes and it was, I felt I was invited to organize a workshop with them, and I felt, how do we connect more clearly people in Zurich who seem to be completely protected and safe from any situation, any humanitarian situation, any disaster situation, and make them feel, well, you're not so far from disasters, you're not so far from potential disasters to come. And the trick was very simple. It is look into the history of your family. How far do you have to go back to find a refugee in your own family? In your case, 0, yourself. In my case, my parents. But with a group of people who were from Zurich, suddenly they said, oh, wow, true, my grandparents, my parents, everyone in the room, even the privileged Swiss. So to connect, situations which look like disconnected and are not at all. as you said. So with that, just to say, tomorrow morning we start also with 2 parallel sessions in this room and the next one at from 9 to 10:40. In this room, we will have the discussion of water, food, environment, and nexus, where Martin will be one of the speakers. And in the other room, there will be the topic of exploring energy and decarbonization challenges, where Christopher will be one of the speakers. And I hope you will enjoy. There is, as usual, dinner served on the other side of this floor from 6 p.m. So 20 minutes from now or so, or less. And I hope you enjoy the evening. And please, as Christopher was saying, keep engaging in good conversations. Thank you to all.